Hello, everybody, and welcome to That Wrestling Show, the podcast where all pro wrestling matters. I am your host, as always, Bill Yankovey. And this week, oh my goodness, there is a lot to talk about in the world of professional wrestling. WWE is going to be getting back on the road real soon. Talked about AEW last week, getting back on the road. WWE will be going back on the road real soon. Also going to review Backlash, going to talk about some NXT releases, and a whole lot more here. Very busy, very newsworthy show, I think, this week here on That Wrestling Show. Unfortunately, have to start off with some sad news this week in the world of professional wrestling. The first one is the passing of Jerome Young, a.k.a. New Jack. New Jack passed away last Friday, right after the show had been put up on the air. He had a heart attack, passed away at the age of 58 years old. If you did not see the Dark Side of the Ring episode of New Jack last year, his story is one of a lot of troubled times as a youth and a lot of scarring moments in his life. And then he would become a professional wrestler in 1992, trained by Ray Candy. And at first, he started out in the Memphis territory, and then his big break, I know a lot of people think, and I thought this too, his big break was in ECW, but it was actually in Smoky Mountain Wrestling, where he teamed up with Mustafa Saeed to form the New Jack, or the Gangstas, pardon me. And they had a brief run there, and then for the next 6 years, New Jack would be a part of ECW, where he would team up with Mustafa with the Gangstas, and then would go into singles competition, and was very, very popular, and would eventually, once ECW went out of business, he made different appearances, one of which he was in the first year of TNA. He was a part of the early years of TNA wrestling, where he had a very interesting partnership with Shark Boy, and then made an appearance at CZW at Cage of Death 5, which, if you've never seen that show, I actually recommend checking that show out. Then probably the most infamous thing he did outside of ECW was the scaffold match with Vic Grimes, where he just basically he launched him off of a scaffold and almost killed him. Like, he almost was killed, Vic Grimes. But New Jack has had a very interesting life. Excuse me. His championship accomplishments include holder of the American Championship Pro Wrestling Hardcore title, 3-time co-holder of the ECW Tag Team titles, twice with Mustafa Saeed and once with John Cronus, held the North Georgia Wrestling Association Heavyweight title, and 2-time co-holder of their tag team titles, once with Festus, not Biscuits and Gravy Festus, and the other with Mustafa Saeed, co-holder of the Smoky Mountain Wrestling Tag Team titles with Mustafa Ali, the Universal Championship Wrestling Hardcore Champion, co-holder of the USWA World Tag Team titles with Homeboy, and his highest ranking in the PWI 500 was number 101 back in 1997, so he just missed out on the top 100. New Jack is survived by his wife, Jennifer, and his 5 kids. And if you would like to help out New Jack's family right now, there is a GoFundMe campaign. I will put it up not only in our Facebook group, but also on our Twitter and our description of this week's episode to help pay for the expenses of his funeral. This came up 5 days ago, or this started 5 days ago, and as of this recording, they have raised just over $13,000 for to help pay for the services, for the funeral services of New Jack. And I did donate some money, so if you can, please help out New Jack's family at this time with paying for funeral services. I know it can be very expensive, and any amount of money will do to help for the family of New Jack. The other death this week in the world of professional wrestling, even though both were shocking, Don Kernodle passed away this week at the age of 71 years old, and I'll get into what the report was, but Don Kernodle basically wrestled in the Mid-Atlantic territory. That was his home territory, and he was a part of a very good tag team with Sergeant Slaughter in the 1980s, and they had this feud with Ricky Steamboat and Jay Youngblood, which culminated. And there have been stories told about this event, stories about this match, where Slaughter and Kernodle defend the NWA World Tag Team titles against Ricky Steamboat and Jay Youngblood in Greensboro at the Coliseum. The stipulation to the match was if Steamboat and Youngblood could not win the titles back, the tag team would have to split up forever. And there's so many famous stories. The main story, really, besides the match, is the traffic jam that this event caused getting into, the Greensboro Coliseum. And it was hours upon hours of, deadlock traffic, because there were people who wanted to see this match. And because it's like, oh my God, Steamboat and Youngblood, they can't lose this match. And it is a bloody mess. It's, I want to say it's a 40-minute match. I don't know if the match is on YouTube or not. But Steamboat and Kernodle, or Steamboat and Youngblood, do win the tag team titles, and you can make an argument that one event, with that match headlining, was the event that really propelled Starrcade to become a reality later that year. Don Kernodle would wrestle in the WWF in 1983 before leaving there in 1984. And then he came back to the NWA, wrestled for Jim Crockett Promotions, and was there till about 1986. And then after he ended, full-time wrestling, Don Kernodle became a sergeant for Immigration Customs Enforcement for Alamance County in North Carolina. He would also eventually be a deputy sheriff with the Alamance County Sheriff's Office. Don Kernodle was 71 years old. The initial report had stated that the death was was self-inflicted gunshot, and that he had been suffering from several health issues, but it was later revealed that Kernodle had committed suicide by gunshot after visiting the doctor. Kind of like New Jack, not a lot of championships Don Kernodle won, but I will go through them. He held the Canadian television title, was the Puerto Rico heavyweight champion, a two-time television champion down in WWC, two-time co-holder of the Mid-Atlantic Tag Team titles with Private Jim Nelson. You may know him better as Boris Zukov. Co-holder of the World Six-Man Tag Team titles with Ivan and Nikita Koloff, and a three-time co-holder of the World Tag Team titles with, respectively, Sergeant Slaughter, Cowboy Bob Orton, and Ivan Koloff. And he was going in this year into the George Tragos Lou Thesz Professional Wrestling Hall of Fame class of 2021. And he was going to go in along with a gentleman by the name of Earl Wampler, who was, let's just say, folks, it was a little bit before our time. Also in that class, Mark Henry is going to be the recipient of the Frank Gotch Award, and the Lou Thesz Award will be going to Trish Stratus, and Ken Shamrock will be getting the George Tragos Award, but Don Kernodle was going in to the Hall of Fame, or at least the Tragos Thesz Hall of Fame. Don Kernodle passed away this week at the age of 71 years old. New Japan has kind of been striking out as of late with the recent rise in COVID cases, but this week they got a very devastating blow as Will Ospreay, the second ever IWGP World Heavyweight Champion, has to vacate the title due to a neck injury. This was on their website, and I will read this to you all. On May 4th's Night 2 of Wrestling Dontaku in Fukuoka, Will Ospreay sustained a neck injury. As a result, Ospreay will not be participating in the next series of events and will instead return to the UK for treatment and rehabilitation. There is no timetable for Ospreay's return to action at this time, and as a result, his IWGP World Heavyweight Championship will be vacated. Further announcements on the status of the IWGP World Heavyweight title will be made at a later date. And you know, I feel bad. I feel real bad for Will Ospreay. It seemed like this was going to be his year in New Japan. He had the amazing match with Okada at night 1 of Wrestle Kingdom this year, which I think was like one of only 2 or 3 matches I gave an A+ on that show. And he had beaten Ibushi for the title, and he defended against Shingo in what some people are saying is the match of the year. I have not seen it yet, but I will try to get to that real soon. And it just seemed like this was going to be his year in New Japan. It just seemed like Will Ospreay was going to take New Japan for a very special ride and not let go. And now we will have to wait and see what happens with Will Ospreay if he is able to return, because a neck injury is a very serious injury. You don't want to mess it up. You don't want anything bad to happen to the neck, and that's a very serious situation there. You don't want to mess around with the neck, and hopefully will be able to get the necessary health care that he can get to be able to come back to New Japan and maybe be once again the IWGP World Heavyweight title or World Heavyweight Champion. But for right now, just take your time, Will. The fans around the world will be waiting for you. So the big news today in WWE is the announcement of return to live events, and it will be a 25-city schedule through Labor Day. And the first 3 dates and locations have been announced, and they are all going to be in Texas. So if you live in the Texas area, you might want to get pen and paper or pencil and paper ready to write down the following dates. The first show will be Friday, July the 16th, a Smackdown show, which will be at the Toyota Center in Houston. 2 days later, and this one is kind of important too because this is a pay-per-view, Sunday, July 18th, Money in the Bank will be held at Dickies Arena in Fort Worth, Texas, and Monday, July 19th, Raw live at the American Airlines Center in Dallas, Texas. Tickets for all 3 of those live events will go on sale this coming Wednesday, May the 26th at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. This is a big news for WWE. They've been wanting to go back, I think, for a little while, and now they have it. And honestly, I think Texas is kind of the best place for them to go to start because eventually the states are going to lift their, restrictions, and they're going to be able to have fans come back and be ready to have more people show up. So I think, like I said last week, just give them a little bit more time and we will see full crowds. Because it kind of worked out at WrestleMania. It did kind of work out at WrestleMania this year. And now let's see what happens here this July, Money in the Bank weekend. That's a pretty good weekend to try it out, I think. And it's going to go all the way through Labor Day, so we know that SummerSlam will be held in a venue, not the Thunderdome this year. The leading location that I have heard right now is Las Vegas to be the host for SummerSlam this year. So we will just have to wait and see. Well, over the last 48 hours, NXT has let go of 9 people, but 2 in particular have made the headlines. But I do want to go through the 9 that have been released. Excuse me. So the 9 that were released include Drake Warts, who was a referee, Alexander Wolf, who recently competed on NXT this week, lost against Killian Dane, Kaviti Devi, who was a part of the Mae Young Classic, Skylar Story, who also known as Brandy Lauren, Jake Clemens, who was another referee, EJ Nuka, who's known as Ezra Judge, Jasmine Duke, friend of Shayna Baszler and Ronda Rousey, Vanessa Bourne, which was kind of surprising because she'd been on TV a lot, and I thought she was doing pretty good, and Velveteen Dream has finally been released, and I will talk about him in a minute, but I do want to talk about Drake Warts first, because he has been causing a lot of controversy the last several months with his political opinions, and that's kind of isolated him from the rest of the locker room, I think. And it's a shame that someone that you thought was a genuinely nice guy like Drake, because I interviewed him many years ago, and he was such a nice guy, just a wonderful person to talk to. It's just a shame to see that, this is who he really is, and it really is a shame. It's just a shame. And unfortunately, people don't show you their true colors. And eventually, this is what Drake is like. That's all there really is to it. But the big one is Velveteen Dream. That is the big one. Velveteen Dream, the first time we all saw him was on Tough Enough. And he had made quite an impression. Didn't win it, obviously. Got signed to NXT. And then he ends up becoming the Velveteen Dream, which at the time, oh my God, that character was so amazing. Just the way he was presented, the way, he had charisma. He had the look, he had the charisma, he had the wrestling skill to be a big-time player. However, the entire scandal with underage people came out, and that was really it. That was the beginning of the end. And there are times where a lot of wrestling fans, I'm not going to say all, but a lot of wrestling fans were probably like, how does this guy still have a job? How is this guy still employed? The evidence is out there against the guy. And he was on NXT for a little bit once the scandal broke. And the last match that he had on NXT was December 23rd last year against Adam Cole, losing to Adam Cole. And he had not been on television since. I think it's going to be really, really hard for him to work anywhere else, or at least in a major promotion. I can't see him going anywhere. If he does, it would be the indies. But even then, I don't know if any indie promotion's going to want to take him in. I really don't. I just don't think it would really work. So, it's kind of one of those, like, good riddance to him, that, he's gone. You don't have to, it's just, you have someone that was just not a good person at the end. It's the same with, Drake that I talked about. You think this person's really good, but in the end, you just find out that he's not. And this is how unliked Velveteen Dream is. Rob Schamberger, who has been a guest on the show before and has made hundreds of paintings, called Velveteen Dream. He didn't say his name, but you could tell who he meant. The single most unprofessional person. Yeah, that's how bad that is. That's pretty bad. So, kind of a good riddance to Velveteen Dream right there. I want to bring up this weird news before we get back to talking about a couple of big stories. This one is with a former WWE wrestler in Ryback. Now, Ryback, over the last several weeks, has been putting up the same poll over and over and over again of, where would you like to see me wrestle? WWE, AEW, and one of them was retire, and every single time people would vote, everyone would answer retire, which Ryback didn't agree to. So anyway, he went on Twitter the other day and had one of the most, how can I say this, unique things you might ever read or hear as a wrestling fan. So, he was posing an argument, and this article, by the way, is from Ringside News. While posing an argument for going vegan, Ryback questioned why humans don't eat each other. He suggested that cooked human meat might taste really good if seasoned properly. So let me read the tweet. Why don't we eat other humans? I'm sure the lean meat with seasoning and cooked to our liking would give us protein, but we fundamentally understand it's morally wrong. There's no difference with animals. We don't need to be killing them and eating them. Once we value life, we get it. I don't know if cannibalism is the right way to go here on this situation at all. As a matter of fact, I do not support cannibalism. So if Ryback wants to be a cannibal, be my guest. Go right ahead. Be a cannibal. I'm not going to stop you. I know your saying was feed me more. I just didn't know it was feed me more humans. My God. All right. Anyway, so AEW had a big week with announcements as they are getting a second show. AEW Rampage will start on Friday, August the 13th at a 10 p.m. time on TNT. Now that's the first piece of news because it gets bigger. Because in 2022, both Dynamite and Rampage will move to TBS. That's right. They're going, in the words of Dusty Rhodes, to the mothership. The mother station. TBS, if you will. So, Dynamite will move to Wednesdays at TBS, on TBS, starting the beginning of the new year. Still have the 8 o'clock time slot. And Rampage will be on Friday at 10 p.m. on TBS, which I think is not only an interesting move, but is also a good move because Turner Sports recently signed a 7-year deal with the National Hockey League to have their games air on basically TNT. So they solve two problems. What are you going to do with your hockey, and what are you going to do with Dynamite? And they're going to get moved to TBS, which I think is a very good move. Probably will get more people to watch, and it's a win-win. Now, the interesting story to this is that Turner was going to give, this is the original report, Turner was going to give AEW Dynamite a third hour. They were going to give them a third hour, be a 3-hour program. And Tony Khan was like, no, we don't want that. That's not what we want. So instead of getting a 3-hour Dynamite, thank God, they decided to give them a second show, which is Rampage. And now AEW will have 3 hours of televised programming every week starting this August on TNT. And then when they go into the new year, they will switch to TBS. So it's a win-win for AEW, and I think it shows the commitment that Turner has with AEW in the faith of the product that they can do really good numbers. And, a few weeks ago with Blood and Guts, they were the highest rated program on cable television that night. So it's a very, very good job for AEW. They've got a second show, and this is also along with Dark and Dark Elevation. So now they've got 4 shows, 2 on television and 2 on YouTube. So they're going to be very, very busy with content for the next several months. Big news from Ring of Honor, as this week they announced that fans will be allowed back to watch Ring of Honor Wrestling at their next pay-per-view, Best in the World. I have the press release here, and I will read it to you guys right now. For the first time in nearly a year and a half, the best wrestling on the planet will be presented live and in person to the best wrestling fans on the planet. Ring of Honor is welcoming fans back into the arena for the Best in the World pay-per-view at the Chesapeake Employers Insurance Arena, previously known as the UMBC Event Center, in Baltimore on Sunday night, July 11th, 2021. The event will be limited capacity, and pod seating will be implemented to ensure proper social distancing of 6 feet between each group of ticket holders. Additionally, temperatures will be taken upon entry, and masks will be required to be worn by all attendees throughout the event. Pods are available in all ticket quantities throughout the arena, up to a maximum of 6 seats per group. For larger orders, fans can contact ROH directly at help@rohwrestling.com before tickets go on sale to help ensure they get seats as close together as possible. Final health and safety policies will be provided approximately 2 to 3 weeks before the event, as the pandemic conditions and government guidelines continue to change. Any refund requests due to the conditions of the pandemic or stringency of health and safety policies will be honored. Tickets for Best in the World will go on sale with special pricing for everyone on Monday, June the 7th at 10 a.m. Eastern. All floor seats will be priced at $50, and all arena seats will be priced at $30 plus all applicable fees. But first, on Monday, May 24th at 10 a.m. Eastern, Honor Club members will be able to begin purchasing tickets as part of a special pre-sale on ROHWrestling.com, and they will receive an additional discount of $10 per ticket. For this pre-sale, seats will be assigned as the best available pod for the size of the group based on the timestamp of the order, first come, first served. Floor seats will be priced at $40, and arena seating will be priced at $20, plus applicable ticketing and facility fees. The pre-sale ends Monday, May 31st at midnight. So there's the big announcement. July 11th, Ring of Honor will have fans back in the arena for Best in the World 2021. The doors will open at 6 p.m. The bell time, 7 p.m. Once again, Sunday, July 11th, Best in the World 2021 Ring of Honor. Finally, because we got a review that we're going to have to get into here. Major League Wrestling, they started off their open draft last night. You could watch this on YouTube. And the first big name signee to come in is Davey Richards. We have not heard the name Davey Richards in quite some time. He had retired to be a firefighter, I think a trained paramedic as well. And he has signed with Major League Wrestling, and he will make his debut at the July 10th taping in Philadelphia. Court Bauer said in an email today that came out, quote, "Davey isn't just a world-class workhorse, he's a beast, one that's going to instantly change the dimension of the in-ring product in MLW. I have a tremendous amount of respect for Davey. He's been one of my favorites to watch for over a decade, and I'm happy to welcome him to our newly expanded roster." So that's the big signing, really, from last night's first round of this open draft. Round 2 is next Thursday night, and you can watch it on YouTube. Go to youtube.com/Major League Wrestling for more details. Okay, well, we had a pay-per-view this past Sunday night, and it actually, with the exception of one match, which we do have to talk about, was a really good pay-per-view. I'm not going to lie. I rather enjoyed this pay-per-view with Backlash, and it was a very good show from beginning to end, like I said, with the exception of one match. And just a very good show. I think, excuse me, here's the thing. If that one match had not happened, or if that one match had been done differently, we could make an argument, keyword being make an argument, that this was one of the best shows of the year. Now, I think this show was actually one of the best WWE pay-per-views of the year, but I just don't think it was the best pay-per-view of the year or the best show of the year. But as far as WWE goes, I thought it was a really, really good show. And I will get into in a little bit what our Facebook group thought of the pay-per-view. And there are comments, actually, about this show from our Facebook group. But let's get into it. Let's get into this review. Going to start with the pre-show match, which was Sheamus doing an open challenge, non-title match, and it was against Ricochet. And this was a fun match. Ricochet got to do a lot of offense on this match, and just a good back and forth match. He had a couple of near falls with Ricochet, but the end of the match, Sheamus catches Ricochet with kind of a $1 Million Man high knee to get the 3 count in the victory. And then after the match, Ricochet attacked Sheamus. Fun match. This was a fun little match. I gave it a C. I gave this match a C. I thought it was worth that grade. Dave Meltzer gave it 3.25 stars, and CBS Sports, what did they give this? Okay, they gave it a B. Okay, not bad. Not bad. So if you're listening for the first time, welcome. I tell you guys what other people thought of these matches that are WWE mostly, and whenever we get to pay-per-views. So the opening match of this pay-per-view is a triple threat match for the Raw Women's title. Rhea Ripley defending against Asuka and Charlotte Flair. This was a tremendous match. This was my match of the night. Hands down. This was my match of the night. A terrific 3-way match that really didn't see any woman get the advantage over the other during the match, which I actually liked. I thought that was a big part of that match. Charlotte, who had a Cruella de Vil inspired gear, just really good in the ring. Rhea Ripley looked good. Asuka looked good. Just a very good match all around. The end of the match, Charlotte gets knocked out to the floor by Rhea Ripley, and it's Asuka and Ripley. Rhea hits the Riptide to get the 3 count and the win to retain the Raw Women's title. Charlotte was on the outside of the ring. She was not involved in the deciding pin, so that was kind of interesting. I gave the match an A-. I really liked this match a lot. Meltzer gave it 4.25 stars. CBS Sports gave it a B+. Now we go to the Smackdown Tag Team title match where Roode and Dolph Ziggler defending against Rey and Dominic Mysterio. During the kickoff, Dominic was attacked by Dolph and Roode. So before the match, the doctor's checking on him, and Rey's like, "Hey, dog, you get other opportunities, son, Holmes. I'll do this alone." So really, the point of the match is it's a handicap match for the most part. It is a handicap match between Rey and Ziggler and Roode. And I have to say, Rey looked good in their, 2-on-1. It was a good match. And then Dominic does make his way out to the ring, and he's trying to get the tag, but Rey is hesitant. And this is telling a good story. Dominic eventually gets into the match, and Roode hits him with a spine buster for a near 2 count. But it goes back and forth. Rey does a dive on the Dolph Ziggler. Dominic hits a frog splash on the Roode. 1, 2, 3. The Mysterios win the SmackDown Tag Team titles. It was a good match. I will say that. It was a good match. The only thing, and I think this is the complaint that I've read from other people, is the match went a little bit long. And I'm looking at the time here. It was 17 minutes, or close to 17 minutes. I'm not someone that's going to complain about the time, but that, you could have shaved a few minutes off. I gave this match a C. Meltzer gave it 3.5 stars. CBS Sports gave it a B. Okay, now we get to the low point of the show. Oh my God. Okay, so the match. So we actually have a couple of segments that's going to lead up to the next match. John Morrison is walking around the locker room, and he sees on this door Lumberjacks. So, before I reveal what it is, I got to take you back to Raw from a week ago, where after Damian Priest had won the match to pick the stipulation, he says, "I want to be a Lumberjack match." And he said in that segment, "I don't care if you get guys from Raw. I don't care if you get guys from SmackDown. I don't care if you get zombies or aliens. I want it to be a Lumberjack match." So, Morrison opens the door, and there are a bunch of zombies there. Oh, boy. This is a good sign. Yep, good sign. So after, I think there was like another segment in between, Morrison comes back to Miz. He tries to explain to Miz that the Lumberjacks aren't really Lumberjacks. They're just zombies, and Miz doesn't really pay attention. So as Miz and Morrison are leaving, here come the zombies walking in the locker room area going towards the ring. Which takes us to our next match, which is The Miz versus Damian Priest in the Lumberjack match. And our Lumberjacks are the zombies, if you haven't figured it out by now. Because this event is sponsored by Army of the Dead, a movie on Netflix starring Batista, which is about, you guessed it, zombies. I'm gonna say this. I actually felt bad for Damian Priest and The Miz. This is maybe the one time where if you had to pick the worst match of the year, it is not the wrestler's fault. Because here's the thing. Miz gets to the ring. Priest gets into the ring. Miz and Morrison wait on the outside, and here come the zombies. And, they're scared. Miz gets in the ring, Morrison runs to the back. The entire focus of this freaking match are the zombies. Not the two men in the ring, but the zombies. We had an Elvis zombie. We had, I think, a CM Punk zombie. We had zombies. That was the whole focus of this match. The whole point of the match were zombies. And it took everything away from the match. This was supposed to be, I think it was supposed to be, the blow-off match with Priest and Miz. I really think that's what it was supposed to be. But instead, it becomes all about the damn zombies. Morrison gets involved at one point, does parkour moves on zombies, but he eventually gets taken out by zombies. Damien Priest, for anyone that cares, Damien Priest won the match. And then after the match, The Miz was eaten by zombies. I couldn't make this up if I tried. I do want to mention before I give the grade, Miz was actually injured during this match. And it is the first time that The Miz, to my knowledge, has ever had a serious injury. I think it was a sprain in the ACL. He's off TV right now. They're not really sure if The Miz is going to need surgery or not. And if so, oh my goodness, that's going to be very interesting to see how Miz could come back because he's never been injured. As far as this match goes, it's an F. It is a straight up F. This match would right now get my vote for the worst match of the year. And it was not Damien Priest's fault. It wasn't Miz's fault. It was the circumstance that they were in. It was absolutely sad. It was beyond pathetic. All this match was to promote some stupid movie on Netflix that I probably will never watch. Meltzer rated this -3 stars, and CBS Sports gave this an F-. And this last sentence in the review of the match on CBS Sports basically describes what we witnessed. Miz was then eaten by zombies as Priest posed, and an Army of the Dead graphic appeared in one of WWE's lowest moments in the past decade, if not longer. Yeah, it was really, really bad. I hope I never have to see this match again. I really hope I never have to see it again. I think this is where we find out that Hell in a Cell is moved to next month. June the 20th, Father's Day, is when that event is. So what a better way to spend Father's Day than by going to Hell in a Cell. Next match, SmackDown Women's title, Bayley challenging Bianca Belair. They had a bit of a challenge on their hand, and the challenge was to try to have a good match after that crap fest that we just witnessed. So, and they did a good job. I will say this, the women really brought their A game on this show. This was a fun match to watch. Bayley being the controlling heel, trying to get the near falls, trying to get the win, can't do it. And it was very cool. And she goes after Bianca's hair at one point. And the end is Bayley gets a roll-up, but Bianca reverses the roll-up, uses her hair to kind of tangle Bayley's legs up to get the 3 count and retain the SmackDown Women's title. I liked this match. It wasn't as good as the match at WrestleMania that Bianca had with Sasha, but this was a good match. I gave this a solid B. This was a solid match. Meltzer gave this 3.5 stars. CBS Sports gave it a B+. Now, one thing I will say, and I did talk about this on the Patreon review, which you guys could check out with a $3 pledge, and I'm gonna reveal this to everyone. I have a theory with this angle. Because if you looked, Bayley's hair is getting kind of long. I think this feud will culminate in a hair versus hair match, or a hair versus title match, or something of that caliber. And Bayley will lose her hair. That's the only way it can go. The only way. Next up, the WWE Championship in a triple threat match. Bobby Lashley defending against Drew McIntyre and Braun Strowman. And you know what? This was a good triple threat match. I enjoyed this match. It's very rare that you get 2 triple threat matches on the same pay-per-view. And it's even rarer that you get 2 good triple threat matches on a pay-per-view. And that is exactly what we got here. Very good, big man, triple threat match. Wasn't boring at all. Not 1 minute. A very fun, very enjoyable match. Lashley goes through the LED board, although it really wasn't that much, off of a 2-foot drop. And then Drew and Braun, they go at it for a bit. Braun sends Drew through the announcer's table. And the ending, Drew hits the Claymore kick onto Braun. It's going to win him the title back. But Bobby comes in, throws Drew out of the ring, covers Braun. 1, 2, 3. Lashley retains the WWE title. Really enjoyed the ending to that match. Very well done. I gave this a B. Meltzer gave it 3 3/4 stars. CBS Sports gave it an A-. You know what? I'm not going to complain about that. I actually am kind of agreeing with everybody here. And then we get to the main event, which is Roman Reigns defending the Universal title against Cesaro. The story to this match is Cesaro has an arm injury. It's his left arm early in the match. And it is the focal point of this entire match. Cesaro tries a sharpshooter, kind of gets it in. Can't do an uppercut. He can't even do the swing with a bad arm. And it's back and forth, back and forth. Reigns eventually puts the guillotine choke on Cesaro. Cesaro passes out. He does not tap. Roman Reigns retains the Universal title. After the match, Jey Uso comes in, hits a super kick on Cesaro, and he's going for a splash when all of a sudden Seth Rollins comes out, and Seth looks at Reigns. Seth laughs either with or at Reigns, and then he attacks Cesaro, and he goes after the injured arm, and that's the pay-per-view. As far as the match goes, I thought it was good. There was a little bit of time where it kind of dragged for me, but it was a good match. I gave it a B. Meltzer gave it 4 1/4 stars. CBS Sports gave it an A+. That may be a little generous, but still, I thought it was a good match. And for the most part, it was a pretty good pay-per-view overall. So let's go to our Facebook group and see what they thought of Backlash, because as you know, I refuse to call it Wrestlemania Backlash. So we asked our fans, what grade would you give this show? This is actually a really close one, but most people gave this a C grade. A few people gave it a B, and one person gave it an F. And we actually have a couple of comments on this pay-per-view. And I will start with Daniel Carr, who said, The only reason I am going B is because the Miz Priest match was just a big commercial. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you. That makes me want to give it an F, but every other match was really good. Dan McIntyre was the one who gave it an F, and he said the whole show was predictable and becoming unwatchable. I could see his point where it was predictable, but it really wasn't unwatchable. It really wasn't. And Eddie Luckritz wrote, other than the zombies, the matches were pretty good. I'm giving this a B. I really enjoyed this show. I think this might have actually been one of the best WWE pay-per-views this year so far. So I'm going to give it a B. I think it's a definite B there. If the Lumberjack match had been different, maybe it's an A. Maybe. Now, as far as favorite match from this show, we have a tie. And it's between Lashley, McIntyre, and Strowman, and Reigns and Cesaro. Very interesting. I did not expect it to go that way. With one vote going to Belair versus Bayley, I am giving my vote to the Raw Women's Title Triple Threat match as my favorite match of Backlash. And it was a really good match. I thought it was the best match of the pay-per-view. But, you know, I think it's a pretty easy thing to say that most people would agree, with the exception of that one match. Backlash was a pretty good pay-per-view. Well, on that note, that is going to wrap it up for this week. Going to be a little bit different on the plugs here because I don't have everything in front of me. If you have any questions or comments, send an email, wrestlingman@thatwrestlingshow.com. Follow the show on Twitter at WrestlingShow11. Join the Facebook group, join the Facebook group, That Wrestling Show fan group. You type that in the search bar and you were right there. And if you can't find it, it's okay. I put the link in the description of each and every episode, so you can copy and paste the link into the bar, and you are there. And follow us on Instagram. It is That Wrestling Show. And check out our Patreon page, patreon.com/That Wrestling Show. You can make a monthly pledge of up to $3. That's our highest tier, and you get some wonderful extra content. All right, so next week I will be previewing AEW's Double or Nothing. Looking like a really, really good show next Sunday night. So I'm going to be previewing that and giving all the predictions as to who will win at Double or Nothing. Everybody have a good, safe weekend. Have fun wherever you are, and come back here next week for another episode of That Wrestling Show, the podcast where all pro wrestling matters. And as always, wrestle on.